Ebere and Aisha stood outside, their buckets on the ground, preparing to take their baths as the cold harmattan breeze slapped against their skin. Aisha rubbed her arms briskly, her goosebumps rising like tiny mounds. I should never have listened to you about bathing outside, Ebere, she said through gritted teeth, her laughter mixing with the chattering of her teeth. Ebere chuckled, her eyes sparkling. Don't be dramatic, Aisha. It's refreshing, she teased, scooping a handful of water from her bucket and flinging it onto Aisha. Aisha shrieked, jumping back. Ebere, are you mad? She exclaimed, her voice high pitched as the cold water trickled down her back. But soon she was laughing too, the sound loud and uninhibited. Aisha really seemed to be enjoying her time with Ebere. As their laughter settled, Ebere opened her soap case, only to let out a groan. Ah, no way, she hissed, holding up the tiny sliver of soap left in the case. I forgot to buy a new soap. Aisha peered at the soap and burst into laughter. You see your life? How do you plan to wash anything with that? It can't even clean your fingers properly. Aisha teased, shaking her head. You can share mine if you like. Ebere wrinkled her nose. Share soap? Ew, that's gross. Aisha's smile faltered, her heart sinking at Ebere's rejection. She masked her discomfort with a laugh. Fine then, suffer in peace, she said, splashing some water on her feet and trying to appear unbothered. Ebere didn't notice the shift in Aisha's tone. I'll just buy a new one from the Copper's Lodge tuck shop, she said, grabbing her towel. Wait here, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Aisha nodded, but her gaze followed Ebere as she walked away. The chill in the air no longer bothered her as much as the lingering sting of Ebere's words. By the time Ebere returned, clutching her new soap triumphantly, Aisha was already done, wrapped in a towel, and soon headed back to their shared room. Aisha's chest was heavy with a strange sadness. She sat in front of the mirror, her gaze fixed on her reflection. What's wrong with me? She whispered to herself, tilting her head to examine her face. Her mind drifted to Ebere's laughter, her dismissive words about the soap. Why can't she see it? She murmured. Later, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Titi's car honked outside their quarters. Aisha, I'm going, Ebere called out, heading for the door. Aisha leaned against the door frame, watching Ebere with a faint smile. Ebere turned and pulled Aisha into a quick hug. I'll miss you, you this girl. Troublemaker, she said, laughing as she pulled away. Bye, Aisha said softly, her arms falling to her sides as she watched Ebere stride out to Titi's car. She stood there as the car drove off, the tail lights disappearing into the distance. Aisha had just finished eating lunch and had retired to her room to watch a movie on her TV when she got the distress call from Ebere. It had been barely 5 days since they left the school where they were serving as coppers, teaching together, and now something terrible had happened between Ebere and Titi, her secret lover. Can you come and pick me up from? Ebere gave the address, her voice trembling through the sobs. Aisha's heart melted. What? What happened? She asked cautiously, her mind racing with possibilities. Please, Aisha, I don't want to talk about it. Ever, Ebere pleaded. Aisha hesitated, then agreed. She didn't want to push her friend when she was clearly in so much pain. Soon, Aisha was at the bus stop with the house driver to pick her up. Ebere stood there, looking so small and vulnerable, clutching her arms tightly. As soon as their eyes met, they hugged. "I'm so sorry," Aisha whispered, her voice thick with emotion, while gesturing for the driver to carry Ebere's belongings to the boot of the car. Ebere was marveled by Aisha's family home. They had a table tennis court, a swimming pool, and a garden brimming with the best kinds of fruits one could ever dream of. She stood still, taking it all in. "Wow," she finally breathed, her eyes wide. "Aisha, you didn't tell me you guys were this wealthy. I wouldn't have wasted a single minute in that woman's house if I'd known." Aisha chuckled as she leaned against the gate. "This is just the house my father gave my mother. His other three wives have homes that are even more impressive. And if you saw the mansion I grew up in, my father's main house, I wonder what you'd say." Ebere stared at her dumbfounded. "Three wives? Wait, four, including your mother? And they all live like this?" "Yep," Aisha replied nonchalantly. Ebere shook her head in disbelief. "You don't even act like it. Since I've known you, you've been so normal. No rich girl attitude at all." Aisha shrugged, smiling faintly. "It's really easy to get tired of it all, honestly. The novelty wears off after a while. I actually get bored staying here, especially now that my older sister is doing her master's in the UK. With her gone, there's no one to play with." Her voice softened at the end, almost as though she were talking to herself. Ebere glanced at her, picking up on the hint of loneliness in her tone. "Well, at least now you have me," she said lightly, nudging Aisha with her elbow. Aisha brightened slightly. "Yeah, I guess I do." She gestured toward the staircase. "Come on, let's head to your room. You'll love it." As they climbed the wide staircase, Ebere's mouth hung open, taking in the intricate railings and the chandelier that sparkled above them. "If this is just your mother's house, I'm almost scared to imagine your father's place." Aisha laughed. "I'll show you one day. You'll probably faint." When they reached the room, Aisha pushed open the heavy wooden door, and Ebere stepped inside. She froze, staring around in awe. "This room is massive," she exclaimed, spinning slowly to take it all in. "I even have my own TV and an air conditioner." She dropped her bag on the plush bed. "I could stay here forever and never go out." Aisha smirked, leaning against the door frame. "Trust me, you'll get bored after a while." Ebere flopped onto the bed, stretching out. "I doubt it. This feels like heaven." She sighed, her voice full of contentment. Aisha laughed. "Well, enjoy it while it lasts. My mother is out at a meeting with her church community right now, but she'll be back later. And by the way," she grinned mischievously, "Shebi you know how to cut chin chin." Ebere sat up, her face puzzled. "Chin chin? Are you serious?" Aisha nodded, trying to hold back her laughter. "Yes, now. Every Christmas, the house help, my mom and I all put our hands together to make it. It's part of what we give out to the less privileged. Plus, my mom loves having some at home for visitors. And since Christmas is in 3 days, we'll start tomorrow. Ebere groaned, but couldn't hide her smile. I just got here, and you already have me walking. Aisha rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic, it's fun. Besides, you enjoy it. Trust me. Ebere chuckled. All right, I'm in. It actually sounds like fun. She leaned back against the bed, a small smile on her lips as she felt the tension of the day slowly slipping away. Thanks for bringing me here, Aisha, she said softly. Aisha plopped down beside her, her expression playful. Just wait till you meet my mom. Then we'll see if you are still thanking me. They both laughed, the room filling with a warmth that made Ebere feel, for the first time that day, truly at ease. Ebere settled in easily and was watching a movie with Aisha in her room. They lay side by side on the bed, their laughter filling the room as the goofy antics of a Christmas comedy played on the TV. Honestly, I needed this laugh, Ebere said between chuckles. This is exactly what I needed after the week I've had. Right? These old Nigerian Christmas comedies always hit different, Aisha replied, her dimples flashing as she grinned. Ebere glanced at the clock on the bedside table. It was almost 7 p.m. She turned over to face Aisha. Aren't you going to pray? She asked, her tone casual but curious. You usually start preparing for the last prayer of the day around this time. You've missed so many since I came. Back at the Copper's Lodge, you never missed any. Aisha's smile faded slightly, and she turned to face Ebere fully, her expression softening. Does it bother you? She asked, her voice quieter now. It's not about me, Ebere replied. It's about you and your commitments. You are the one who always says how much your prayers keep you grounded. Aisha didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached out and gently took Ebere's hand, her eyes locking onto hers. The sudden intimacy of the gesture made Ebere's heart skip a beat. Aren't you enjoying your time with me? Aisha asked softly, her face now so close that Ebere could feel her breath. Her lips were almost brushing against Ebere's, and the tension in the air grew thick. Ebere quickly pulled her hand away and sat up abruptly, clearing her throat. Aisha, she began, her tone firm but not harsh. You shouldn't neglect your prayers or your way of life just because you are watching a movie with a friend. She stood up, slipping on her slippers and smoothing her clothes. I'll go back to my room so you can have your time. Aisha's face fell, her chest tightening as she watched Ebere gather herself and walk out of the room. She curled up on her bed, her arms wrapping tightly around her knees. Once again, Ebere had missed the signs, had failed to notice the growing feelings that were so hard to suppress. As the door closed behind Ebere, Aisha buried her face in her pillow, the tears she had been holding back finally spilling over. Her quiet sobs filled the room, but they were interrupted by a voice ringing from downstairs. Norma! It was her mother's voice, calling her by her Igbo name. Aisha quickly wiped her tears, jumping out of bed and forcing a smile as she ran downstairs to greet her. Mommy, welcome! She exclaimed, her voice overly cheerful. How was the meeting? Her mother looked at her with a knowing smile, the type that only mothers had. It was fine, my dear, she said warmly. Who is this? She asked, her eyes falling on Ebere, who had just shyly descended the stairs behind Aisha. Oh, this is Ebere, my friend from the Copper's Lodge, Aisha said, gesturing toward her. Ebere stepped forward, a little nervous under the woman's kind but scrutinizing gaze. Good evening, ma, she said politely. Aisha's mother broke into a wide smile. Ebere, welcome to our home, she said warmly, reaching out to shake her hand. I hope my daughter has been taking good care of you. Yes, ma, Ebere said, smiling. Aisha's mother raised a brow. What did you eat? Ebere hesitated. Um, I had Indomie earlier, she admitted. The older woman's expression immediately shifted to one of mock annoyance as she turned to Aisha. Norma, Indomie? Is that what you give a guest? Mommy, Aisha protested, laughing nervously. She said she wanted something light. Uh-huh. Light doesn't mean noodles, her mother shot back. Where is Grace? She asked, referring to their house help. I don't know for that one, Aisha replied. Her mother clapped her hands together decisively. Ebere, you will eat pounded yam and ofen salad tonight, Abby? She asked, her tone playful but firm. Ebere smiled shyly. I know you've missed real home-cooked meals since being in Ekiti. Aisha's mother continued, but Ebere shook her head, maintaining her smile. It's all right, ma. The indomie was enough for me. Are you sure? Aisha's mother asked again as Ebere nodded, feeling a warmth from Aisha's mother that immediately put her at ease. Ebere lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling in the dim light of the room. Sleep evaded her, no matter how many times she turned over or adjusted her pillow. She sighed, trying to make sense of the swirling thoughts in her mind. Was it the stress of the day? The slap from Titi still stung emotionally? Or the unfamiliarity of being in a new home? Then her mind wandered to Aisha, and her heart began to race. It wasn't the first time Aisha had looked at her that closely, but this time felt different. Their lips had almost touched. Why had her heart skipped then? And why was it still skipping now? She shook her head in frustration, muttering under her breath. I'm barely out of one heartbreak. I can't be catching feelings so easily, she chastised herself. Turning to the other side, Ebere squeezed her eyes shut, determined to push the intrusive thoughts away. But as sleep finally washed over her, Aisha's face was the last image in her mind. The next day came in a haze. After breakfast, as they sat at the dining table, Aisha's mother mentioned the chin-chin making. Norma said you'd be joining us, her mother said, her tone teasing. But you don't have to. Me, Norma, and Grace will handle it. Ebere smiled knowingly. That's what her mom used to say every time she wanted to lure her into helping. It sounds like fun. I'll join, she replied. Aisha's mother clapped her hands in delight. Very good. That's the spirit. The kitchen soon turned into a lively workspace. Music played from a small Bluetooth speaker as the four women set to work. Aisha, Ebere, Grace, and Aisha's mother. The rhythmic sounds of dough being kneaded and laughter filled the air. At one point, Aisha's mother began dancing to an old high life song, her arms flailing comically as she tried to follow the beat. Uh-uh, what is this? Ebere teased, doubling over with laughter. Is this not how you youngsters dance these days? Aisha's mother asked, mimicking an exaggerated social media dance move. Aisha shook her head, holding her stomach as she laughed. Mommy, please stop. You're embarrassing me. Embarrass you? You are lucky I'm not posting this online. She shot back, her voice brimming with mock indignation. Grace, the house help, chuckled. Mommy, maybe you should post it. This one will go viral. The laughter carried on until the work was done, just a few minutes before 7 p.m. Aisha quickly excused herself to perform ablution and pray. After finishing her prayers, she sat on the edge of her bed, lost in thought. A soft knock on the door snapped her back to reality. Come in, she called. Ebere peeked in, smiling. Oh, am I disturbing? Aisha shook her head quickly, her face flushing. No, no, I was just finishing up. Ebere stepped inside. I wanted to try out the swimming pool. I've been eyeing it since I came yesterday, she said, excitement lighting up her face. Aisha hesitated, her heart thudding. We can go together if you want, she replied shyly. I have an extra swimsuit here somewhere. She began rummaging through her box, her hands trembling slightly. As she searched, a black bra tumbled out of the box onto the floor. Ebere's gaze immediately locked onto it, her brow furrowed. Aisha. Ebere bent down and picked it up slowly. Recognition flashed across her face. This is mine. Aisha froze, her face turning beet red. She avoided Ebere's eyes, trying to steady her racing thoughts. How did it land in your box? Ebere asked, her voice soft but puzzled. I remember packing it in my box back at the Copper's Lodge. Aisha swallowed hard, her mind scrambling for an explanation. She couldn't possibly admit the truth, that she had sniffed Ebere's bra obsessively, captivated by her scent, and had accidentally taken it home while trying to hide it. I, I, Aisha stammered, her hands fidgeting. I thought it was mine by mistake, she finally blurted out, her voice barely audible. Ebere studied her for a moment before nodding slowly, a smile forming on her lips. Oh, that's fine. Honest mistake. Relieved but still trembling inside, Aisha let out a nervous laugh. Now the suit, Ebere said, her cheerful tone breaking the tension. We need to get into that pool today. Just as Aisha and Ebere were about to get into the pool, Aisha's mother called out to them to come help package the chin-chin into small bags. They both giggled as they went to dress properly and answer the call. The next few days went in a blur, and Christmas Day arrived with its usual buzz of activity. Aisha's mother left early for church and returned with a crowd of visitors. Grace, Aisha, and Ebere spent the better part of the day serving food, drinks, and desserts. The festive spirit filled the house, but it wasn't long before murmurs about how quiet and uneventful the gathering felt began to spread. Felicity, one of the women seated near the window, was the first to voice her thoughts. This place needs some Christmas music. It's too dull for such a beautiful day. She didn't wait for anyone to respond before walking over to the grand piano in the corner of the sitting room. She adjusted her glasses, ran her fingers over the keys, and began playing familiar Christmas tunes. The room lit up instantly with murmurs of approval and clapping to the beat. Now we just need someone to sing, another guest, a man with a booming voice, declared. The guests began looking around for a volunteer. Aisha turned to Ebere with a mischievous glint in her eyes. You can sing, she said softly. Ebere's eyes widened in panic. What? No, I haven't sung in years. Don't think, don't even think about it. Oh, come on, Aisha pressed, leaning closer. I've heard you in the bathroom at the Copper's Lodge. Your voice is beautiful, Ebere. Ebere shook her head vehemently, but before she could protest further, Aisha's mother caught wind of the conversation. Is that true, Ebere? You can sing? She asked, her tone encouraging yet firm. No, ma. Ebere began to decline, but Aisha's mother cut her off with a knowing smile. Then you must sing for us. Don't let us beg, my dear. Ebere sighed, realizing resistance was futile. After much coaxing, she finally relented. Standing in the middle of the room, she took a deep breath, her heart racing as all eyes turned to her. She began to sing Once in Royal David City, her clear soprano voice filling the room. The melody floated effortlessly, silencing every murmur. The only sound apart from her voice was Felicity's graceful piano accompaniment. Aisha, who had been leaning against the wall, couldn't take her eyes off Ebere. As the notes soared, something in her chest tightened. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, and she blinked rapidly, trying to suppress them. The way Ebere poured her soul into the song struck something raw within her. Before Ebere could finish the final verse, Aisha turned and briskly left the room. Ebere faltered slightly, her eyes following Aisha's retreating figure, but she pushed through to the end. When the final note faded, the room erupted in applause. That was amazing, one guest exclaimed. You have such a gift, another added. Ebere smiled politely, bowing her head in thanks, but her mind was elsewhere. She excused herself, slipping out of the sitting room to find Aisha. She searched upstairs, knocking on Aisha's bedroom door. When there was no response, she pushed the door open and found it empty. Frustrated, she let out a sigh and headed back downstairs. As the evening wore on and the guests trickled out, Ebere decided to clear her head with a swim. She changed into the swimsuit Aisha had lent her earlier and made her way to the pool. To her surprise, Aisha was already there, floating quietly on her back. The faint glow of the pool lights reflected off the water, casting a serene but heavy atmosphere. Oh, you are here, Ebere said softly as she entered the pool. I've been looking for you. Aisha didn't reply, her gaze fixed up. Ebere swam closer, sensing something wrong. You left earlier, Ebere said. Why? Aisha turned her head slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. I just needed some air. Ebere frowned. You're acting strange. What's going on? Nothing, Aisha muttered, moving to the other side of the pool. Ebere followed her. Don't lie to me, Aisha. What's wrong? Aisha shook her head, her movements agitated as she swam further away. Please, Ebere, just leave me alone. No, Ebere said firmly, swimming after her again. Talk to me. Why are you avoiding me? Aisha finally stopped, turning to face Ebere with a pained expression. Her voice broke as she spoke. Because I can't do this anymore. Do what? Ebere asked, confused and slightly frustrated. Aisha swallowed hard, her gaze dropping to the water. I'm madly in love with you, Eberechi Ugu, she said, her voice trembling as she used Ebere's full name. Ebere's breath hitched. She opened her mouth to speak, but Aisha held up a hand, silencing her. Let me finish, Aisha said. I've loved you since the first day I saw you at the Copper's Lodge. I've watched you love someone else, make love to her, wishing it could be me. And it hurts every single day. Seeing you, being near you, pretending I'm okay. It's killing me. I just I just can't do this anymore. Tears streamed down Aisha's cheeks as she spoke, her voice shaking with every word. I know you don't feel the same way, and I'm not asking you to. I just needed you to know. And now, I need to move on. Ebere stared at her, speechless. The silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the gentle lapping of the water. Slowly, Ebere moved closer to Aisha. Don't move, Ebere whispered, her voice barely audible. Aisha froze as Ebere closed the gap between them. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world around them ceased to exist. Then, without warning, Ebere pulled Aisha to herself until their bodies were pressed against each other. She leaned in, her lips brushing against Aisha's in a soft, tentative kiss. The kiss deepened, fueled by a sense of urgency and suppressed emotions. Aisha responded with equal intensity as they both made their way out of the water, breathless. Soon, they were in Aisha's room. Aisha couldn't control her breathing, and neither could Ebere. I have never done this before, Aisha admitted as they were about to let go of all emotions. We can take it slow, Ebere said, also trying to catch her breath. They lay on the bed, side by side, as they cuddled, neither saying a word, but just enjoying the rhythm of their heartbeats. Ebere and Aisha finally became an item and had the best Christmas holiday ever. Their days were filled with stolen kisses, lazy mornings wrapped in each other's arms, and whispered promises about the future. But when they returned to the school where they taught as coppers, reality set in. They had to resume keeping their relationship a secret, hiding their love from prying eyes. One sunny afternoon, they found solace in the quiet of a park just outside the town. The Hamatan breeze swirled around them as they lay on a plaid blanket beneath a canopy of trees. Ebere's head rested on Aisha's lap, while Aisha gently stroked her braids, their bodies angled discreetly so that anyone passing by would see nothing more than two friends enjoying the fresh air. Aisha broke the silence first, her voice tinged with frustration. How long do we have to keep hiding from people? She asked, her fingers absent mindedly tracing circles on Ebere's shoulder. I hate to love you and can't voice it out because it's taboo for a woman to love another woman. It's exhausting, Ebere. Ebere shifted slightly, reaching up to hold Aisha's free hand tightly, their fingers interlocking in a way that wouldn't draw attention. I know, Aisha, she said softly, but we'll take it one step at a time. I still haven't even thought about how I'd break this news to my parents, my father being a pastor and all. Her voice trailed off, and she let out a bitter chuckle. What I know is that no matter what happens, the worst he can do is disown me. That's the sacrifice we'd have to make for a love like ours. You are lucky, she added after a pause. Your father doesn't care because you are not a boy. He has so many other children to focus on. And your mother? Ebere shook her head, laughing. Your mother is something else. She's actually trying to understand after walking in on us during the holidays. Aisha laughed, her face flushing at the memory. Oh my God, I thought she was going to faint when she saw us. Her hand on her chest, like she just discovered a snake under the bed. And you just stood there saying, Good afternoon, ma, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Ebere teased, grinning. What was I supposed to do? Run out of the room? Aisha shot back, laughing harder now. And the way she cornered me later, asking all those questions. Are you sure this is what you want? How long has this been going on? She hasn't brought it up again since, though. She loves you. She'll come around, Ebere said firmly, her tone filled with conviction. Aisha's laughter faded, her expression turning more serious. She hesitated before asking, And what about Madame Titi? When last did you hear from her? The mention of Titi's name made Ebere sit up, brushing her hands against her lap as if shaking off a memory. She did call, she admitted, to apologize for how everything ended. But it's clear we want different things. I want someone who is bold enough to love me, to own what we have without fear. She, Ebere sighed. She has her family, her husband and her kid. They are more important to her. And I get that. It's understandable. Aisha nodded slowly, though curiosity lingered in her voice. Do you still love her? Ebere turned to face Aisha, her eyes steady. Of course not, she said with certainty. I thought I did, but I was wrong. It wasn't love. It was something else. A phase, maybe. Aisha reached out, gently grazing Ebere's cheek with her fingertips. Her heart ached to kiss her, but the risk was too great. Instead, she asked quietly, "You will always love me, right? You won't wake up one day and decide this journey of yours was just another phase, that you actually like men after all." Ebere's eyes softened as she took Aisha's hand again, squeezing it tightly. "I'd never do that," she said, her voice resolute. "You are not just a phase, Aisha. You are my everything." The two women lay back down, their hands clasped together as they gazed at the evening sky. The sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in hues of orange and purple, a breathtaking canvas for their whispered dreams. In that moment, they let themselves hope. As long as they had each other, they believed they could conquer anything.